In the shadows of Alexandria's great library, a 17-year-old boy held the power to destroy Rome's greatest ruler before he even truly began to reign. His name was Caesarion, and his very existence was a declaration of war against everything Octavian had fought to build. The year was 30 BCE, and the ancient world stood at a crossroads. While Octavian celebrated his victory over Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium, a more dangerous threat walked the marble corridors of the Ptolemaic palace. Caesarion wasn't just another royal heir. He was the living embodiment of a claim that could shatter the foundations of Roman power. The boy's parentage told a story that Rome desperately wanted to forget. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, had named him Little Caesar for a reason that sent chills through the Roman Senate. She claimed he was the son of Julius Caesar himself, conceived during those fateful months when the great general had lingered in Alexandria, captivated by the Egyptian queen's intelligence and political acumen. But this wasn't merely a lover's boast or a mother's wishful thinking. The implications were staggering. If Caesarion truly was Caesar's son, he possessed a bloodline claim to Roman leadership that predated Octavian's own. While Octavian had been adopted by Caesar and inherited his name through legal documents, Caesarion carried Caesar's blood in his veins, a distinction that mattered deeply in a world where divine ancestry and bloodline legitimacy determined the fate of nations. The young prince had grown up in a court where Egyptian traditions merged with Roman ambitions. He spoke fluent Latin and Greek, understood the intricacies of both cultures, and had been groomed by his mother to potentially rule not just Egypt, but to reclaim his father's position in Rome. Cleopatra had invested everything in this possibility, seeing in her son the chance to restore Egypt's independence and her own dynasty's glory. Yet as Octavian's forces approached Alexandria, the weight of political reality pressed down on the royal family. The boy, who had been raised as a future emperor, now found himself a hunted fugitive. His mother's alliance with Mark Antony had failed catastrophically, and the combined forces of Egypt and Rome's eastern territories had crumbled before Octavian's methodical advance. In the palace's inner chambers, away from the approaching Roman legions, Cleopatra made desperate calculations. She had already begun secret negotiations with Octavian, hoping to secure her son's future even as her own reign crumbled. The queen, who had once entertained Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, now faced the harsh reality that her political maneuvering had reached its limits. The irony was profound. Egypt, the richest province in the ancient world, had become a prize to be claimed rather than a power to be negotiated with. The land that had fed Rome's growing population and funded its military campaigns was about to lose its independence entirely. And at the center of this transformation stood a teenage boy, whose very existence represented the last obstacle to Octavian's complete dominance. As Roman soldiers began to appear in Alexandria's streets, Caesarion's fate became intertwined with the broader question of how empires transfer power. Would the new order that Octavian envisioned have room for rival claimants? Could the man who would become Augustus Caesar afford to let Julius Caesar's potential son live? The answer would reshape the ancient world and establish precedents that would echo through centuries of imperial rule. In the corridors of power, mercy was often a luxury that ambitious rulers couldn't afford. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from ancient history. Hit that like button if you're ready to uncover the dark secrets of Rome's rise to power, and comment below, do you think Caesarion was truly Julius Caesar's son? We'll explore this question deeper in our next chapter. As Cleopatra's lifeless body lay adorned in golden burial robes, her final gamble had already set in motion, a desperate plan to smuggle her son beyond Octavian's reach. But the future emperor's spies had been watching, waiting, and planning a move that would define the ruthless nature of Roman imperial power. The aftermath of Cleopatra's suicide by asp bite in August 30th BCE revealed the calculated desperation of a queen who had run out of options. But her death was not a surrender. It was a strategic sacrifice designed to buy time for her most precious asset, Caesarion. In the chaotic hours following her dramatic end, a carefully orchestrated escape plan unfolded in the shadows of Alexandria. Cleopatra had entrusted her son's fate to Roden, his loyal tutor, who had been secretly preparing for this moment for months. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While Octavian's forces secured the palace and dealt with the immediate aftermath of the royal suicides, Caesarion would slip away disguised as a common merchant, traveling south toward the Ethiopian border where loyal Egyptian allies still held sway. The young prince had been coached in this deception. His royal bearing had to be suppressed, his educated speech patterns altered, and his distinctive features, reportedly bearing a striking resemblance to Julius Caesar, concealed beneath the rough clothing of a trader. For a boy who had spent his life surrounded by the ceremonial grandeur of Ptolemaic court life, this transformation represented more than a change of clothes. It was an erasure of identity itself. But Octavian had not conquered half the Mediterranean world by underestimating his enemies. The future emperor understood that Cleopatra's death, while eliminating one problem, had potentially created a far more dangerous one. A dead queen could not raise armies or forge alliances, but a living heir with a legitimate claim to Caesar's legacy could become a rallying point for every enemy Rome had made in its relentless expansion. Intelligence networks that had served Octavian well during the civil wars now focused their attention on tracking the fleeing prince. Roman agents, many of them Egyptians who had chosen pragmatism over loyalty, began systematically investigating every route out of Alexandria. The ports were watched, the desert roads monitored, and the river traffic along the Nile scrutinized with methodical efficiency. The political calculations were complex but clear. Octavian had built his entire claim to power on being Caesar's heir, but his connection was legal rather than biological. Roman law recognized adoption as creating legitimate succession rights, but the deeper question of blood lineage carried weight that transcended legal documents. In a world where divine ancestry mattered, where the gods supposedly chose rulers through bloodlines, Caesarion's existence posed a theological as well as political challenge. Moreover, the young prince represented more than just a potential rival claimant. He embodied the dangerous possibility of Egyptian independence resurgent. Should he reach safety and mature into a capable leader, he could return with foreign backing, perhaps from Parthia or the Ethiopian kingdoms, to reclaim his mother's throne. Egypt's wealth made it too valuable to risk losing, and its strategic position controlling the grain supply that fed Rome's growing population made it too important to leave unsecured. The chase that ensued revealed the sophisticated intelligence apparatus that would become a hallmark of the Roman Empire. Octavian's agents traced Caesarion's movements with patience and precision, allowing him to travel far enough south to feel secure while ensuring he could never truly escape their reach. This wasn't merely about capturing a fugitive, it was about demonstrating that the new Roman order would be thorough, methodical, and utterly ruthless in eliminating threats. As the net tightened around the fleeing prince, a broader pattern emerged. The transformation of the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire required more than military victory. It demanded the complete elimination of alternative power centers. Caesarion's fate would establish the precedent that imperial transitions left no room for rival claimants, no matter how young or seemingly harmless they might appear. The boy who had once been groomed to rule now found himself learning hard lessons about the reality of power. In the harsh landscape of the Egyptian desert, surrounded by the loyal but ultimately powerless remnants of his mother's court, Caesarion began to understand that his royal blood, rather than protecting him, had marked him for destruction. The tragic irony was becoming clear. The very qualities that made him valuable as a potential ruler, His intelligence, his charisma, his legitimate claim to power were precisely the reasons why Octavian could never allow him to survive. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the hidden brutality of ancient politics, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Like this video if you want to see more stories about the real cost of empire building. Comment and let us know. Was Octavian's pursuit of Caesarion justified, or was it pure paranoia? The stunning conclusion awaits in our final chapter. On a dusty road near the Egyptian border, a 17-year-old boy looked into the eyes of his executioner and saw the cold calculation that would define the next 4 centuries of Roman rule. This was the moment when Augustus Caesar proved that empires are built not just on victory, but on the willingness to destroy even the most innocent threats to power. The capture of Caesarion came not through dramatic chase or heroic last stand, but through the methodical efficiency that characterized Octavian's approach to consolidating power. His agents had tracked the fleeing prince to a small trading post near the border with Nubia, where Roden had hoped to find passage to Ethiopian territories still beyond Roman influence. The arrest was almost anticlimactic. No resistance was offered, no dramatic speeches made. Caesarion, perhaps finally understanding the futility of his situation, submitted to his captors with the dignity that had been instilled in him by his royal upbringing. The boy, who had been raised to command legions, now found himself in chains, his fate sealed by political necessities he had never chosen but could never escape. Back in Alexandria, Octavian faced the defining decision of his early reign. The young prince sat in a secure chamber of the palace where his mother had once ruled, and the future emperor had to choose between mercy and security. The choice seemed obvious from a strategic standpoint, but it carried profound implications for the kind of ruler Octavian would become. The historical record, though sparse, suggests that Octavian did not make this decision lightly. He consulted with his closest advisors, including the philosopher Apollodorus of Pergamon, who reportedly delivered the counsel that sealed Caesarion's fate. Too many Caesars. This succinct observation captured the essential political reality. The Roman world could not sustain multiple claimants to Caesar's legacy without descending into renewed civil war. The execution itself was carried out with the efficiency and discretion that would become hallmarks of imperial justice. No public spectacle, no dramatic pronouncements, no opportunity for the condemned to become a martyr. Caesarion was quietly put to death, his body disposed of without ceremony, his existence officially erased from the record of legitimate heirs. This clinical approach to elimination revealed something crucial about the nature of the new order Octavian was creating. The Roman Empire that would emerge from the ashes of the Republic would be built on systematic control rather than charismatic leadership. Every potential source of instability would be identified and neutralized with methodical precision. The broader implications of Caesarion's death extended far beyond the immediate political situation. His execution established the precedent that imperial succession would be tightly controlled, that alternative claimants would not be tolerated, and that the new emperor's authority would be absolute. This wasn't merely about eliminating a rival. It was about defining the very nature of Roman imperial power. The tragic irony was profound. Caesarion had been raised to embody the best of both Roman and Egyptian traditions, educated to be a bridge between cultures, groomed to be a unifying figure who could reconcile East and West. Instead, his death marked the end of any pretense that Rome's relationship with Egypt would be one of partnership rather than domination. With Caesarion's execution, Egypt's 3,000-year-old tradition of pharaonic rule came to an abrupt end. The land that had produced some of history's greatest rulers, from the pyramid builders to Alexander's successor Ptolemy, became just another Roman province, its wealth flowing to Rome, its independence a memory. The transformation was complete. Octavian, who would soon take the name Augustus, had secured not just military victory, but ideological dominance. By eliminating the last potential challenger to his interpretation of Caesar's legacy, he had cleared the path for a new form of government that would endure for centuries. The boy's death also marked a turning point in how power would be transferred in the Roman world. The precedent established by Caesarion's execution would be repeated throughout imperial history. Potential rivals would be eliminated preemptively, succession would be managed through adoption and political maneuvering, and the imperial family would jealously guard its monopoly on legitimate rule. In the cold calculus of empire building, Caesarion's execution was undoubtedly successful. It eliminated a potential source of future instability, demonstrated Octavian's ruthless efficiency, and established the principle that imperial authority would brook no challenges. But it also revealed the moral cost of such effectiveness, the willingness to destroy innocence in service of political necessity. The last son of Cleopatra died not as a rival emperor or a military threat, but as a symbol of the old world that Rome was systematically dismantling. His execution marked the end of the Hellenistic period and the beginning of the Roman imperial age, a transformation purchased with the blood of a teenager whose only crime was carrying the wrong lineage at the wrong moment in history. The empire that Augustus built would indeed last for centuries, but it would be forever marked by the ruthless pragmatism that began with a 17-year-old boy's quiet death in an Alexandria palace. In the end, Caesarion's tragic fate secured not just Octavian's throne, but the entire imperial system that would dominate the Mediterranean world for generations to come. This concludes our exploration of one of history's most calculated political executions. If this story revealed something new about the brutal realities of ancient power, please subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from the ancient world. Hit that like button if you found this analysis compelling and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Augustus had any choice but to eliminate Caesarion? Was this cold pragmatism or necessary statecraft? Your engagement helps us continue bringing these forgotten stories to light.